Hello, mindful friends. I hope you had a fabulous week last week, strengthening your mindful muscles and seeing how you can use them out in the world. This week, what has been very present for me and friends and clients is this idea of needing to fix or cure others, which leads to this kind of pressure or grasping to the control. And I was working on this myself and listened to a talk by Ajahn Brahm, an Australian monk. And he was working with healthcare providers, with doctors and nurses and counselors, and listening to their frustration. So working with the frustration of the work, with feeling despair, with feeling burnout. And what he was saying is that what leads to that frustrated feeling is when we're holding on to the idea that our job and like the only purpose of us is to cure other people. So that we get too fixated on the fixing, on the getting our own desired outcome for their health or how they're doing things. And then when the patient is not following through and they're not finding healing, there's a frustration of, well, they're not getting better and they're not doing what they need to do in order to get better. And that because we've been grasped onto our purpose is to cure them, it transfers over to us feeling like we're a failure. So they aren't getting better, they're not doing what they need to heal. I'm frustrated because now my purpose in life is not fulfilled. I have failed at what I'm here to do, which then transfers into a feeling of resentment towards clients and patients for not following through with their care, for not taking care of themselves, for not doing recommended things and not getting better, which ends up in burnout. And whether we're healthcare providers, whether we're mothers or fathers, whether we're close friends with people who are struggling, even if we're really passionate about our country and about politics, clinging to the idea that we have to fix or that the outcome has to be our cure for things often leads to frustration, to resentment, and can sometimes end in anger or a distancing or a disconnect versus an actual connecting to a being with in peace and compassion. And what can help us transfer from this mode of getting into frustration with life, frustration with the world, frustration with friends or loved ones, and creating a hostile environment between us both, because we've been trying to control them to get them to be cured, to get them to be better in the way that we want them to be better. If we get too attached to that, we have to control what they're doing, how they're being, what's happening in politics, what other choices people are making. We want to control it so that we cure the problem. And that ends up leading to a disconnect, right? Because somebody who's being controlled by someone else, they don't feel very close to you in a real way. They don't feel very loved, and they don't feel compassion from you. They feel like they're trying to be controlled and that they're just kind of there fulfilling your desire for a certain outcome. And so to bring the caring back, that's what Ajahn Brahm was teaching, is that instead of grasping to the idea that we have to cure, we remember that our role is to care. And we place the focus back on, I'm just here to love and care for this person. I'm here to be a support where they need it. I'm here to live that love and that peace and that compassion. And what happens when we switch that focus is that all of a sudden the pressure is off to cure them, to force them to do certain things that you consider to be correct for their healing. The pressure is off. Then you remove that feeling of frustration when they don't, because you don't feel like a failure. That wasn't your job. Your job was to care. It was to give care. Whether or not they accept it, whether or not they change, whether or not it's the outcome that you want, you're not a failure because you weren't grasping to curing, you were holding on to caring. And what helps us to stay in the caring and in the loving and the being with in compassion versus that grasping and needing to control an outcome and force someone else to do what we want, what helps us to stay there is a trust in self. Because what you'll notice is if you're grasping to changing someone else, to curing someone else, notice what the need under that is. Oftentimes you'll find that it's self-protection, it's self-fulfillment, it's self-identity, it's the feeling of, I'm the curer, my job is to fix this, or that if you're not well, you might be harmful for me, or I won't get my needs met if you're not in a place where you're healthy enough to meet them. Or if it's in politics, it's that if you don't do this or this policy isn't made, I won't get my needs met. So when it's kind of cure focused or outcome focused, you'll notice that it's actually based in a self-protect, a self-serving motivation. And what we can do to come out of that is recognize, what is it that I'm trying to get for myself in this? Whether it's recognition that I cured somebody, whether it's a healthy relationship with this person so that then they meet my needs and they're good to me, or whether it be a policy in politics that then serves me and my needs. So recognize those needs and then look around and trust that whether or not this other person kind of heals in the way that you want, or whether they change in the way that you want, or the world changes in the way that you want, whether or not the external arrives at that, you trust that you are able to take care of your own well-being. You are able to find the sources of what you need within and around you. And you see the abundance of this, maybe not from that one source that you're trying to force into being for you, but in many sources and in many places. And then once you start trusting that you can stay well, you can get your needs met, you can do it for self based on what you cultivate within, then you can start trusting the other and you can start giving them the freedom to be who they really are and take their journey. And you remain in the role of loving, compassionate caregiver. You're caring instead of curing. And it takes the pressure off of, I have to fix you so that my needs get met. I have to make sure you're well so that, I am reinforced in my identity as healthcare provider because I provided health, or whatever it is. So you come out of the self-serving need that attaches you to controlling others, and you rest back into this trust of self and others that fills you with this peace and this love and this compassion, so that then you can be present for the other person without feeling the pressure to control and change their experience or how they're being in the world. So you're not needing to fix them. You are being present for them in love and compassion. So I hope you have a fabulous week, practicing caring for others instead of trying to cure. Practicing being with in compassion and love versus trying to control or change. And I hope to see you all very soon.